It is Monday again and the clock just hit 2 p.m. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to another edition of Market View right here on Eswatini TV. My name is Notile Sitole. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. In a world where youth unemployment looms large and innovation has become a currency for survival, the future belongs to those who dare to build it. In the kingdom, that future is being shaped in campus corridors where young minds transform ideas into enterprises. At the heart of this movement, is Enactus Eswatini, empowering university students to use entrepreneurial action to solve real-world challenges. With a growing presence in local institutions and a global stage awaiting at the Enactus World Cup, today we speak to Enactus Eswatini Director to explore how the organization is unlocking youth potential and preparing a generation to lead in a world that needs action. That conversation coming up at around 10 minutes past 2, but for now we'll have a look at some of our business stories this afternoon. In our business news, in light of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, with support from SADC, the AFCFTA Secretariat and the European Union, conducted training for customs officials on the proper implementation of rules of origin. Speaking at a Sibain Lodge during the training, the Director of Trade, Lungile Dlamini, who was representing the Principal Secretary, said that rules of origin are essential for verifying the identity and origin of products in international trade. They ensure that only goods which meet specific criteria benefit from trade agreements and are exempted from certain tariffs.
Rules of origin in the context of the AFCFTA do not only benefit Eswatini, but the continent as a whole. The agreements provide for the implementation of cumulation on some products lines, which renders products as originating in the continent and not just an individual country. This provision will enhance the development of value chains, which are a priority to Eswatini and the AFCFTA entirely.
EU Ambassador Kirsten McClenberg says understanding the rules of origin will help Eswatini take full advantage of the SADC-EU Economic Partnership Agreement.
The EPA offers a stable legal framework guaranteeing duty-free, quota-free access to the European market. Its asymmetry allows Eswatini to protect sensitive sectors while seizing new opportunities. The EU SADC EPA is more than a trade deal. It is a pathway to shared prosperity. Rules of origin are your passport to that pathway, unlocking preferential access to the EU's vast market.
Faith Matenge explains more about the EU World Customs Organization's Rules of Origin for Africa program, which aims to build technical capacity and promote better application of the rules of origin across the continent.
Which looks at increasing intra-African trade, increasing trade between Africa and Europe, and ultimately the trade volumes, international trade between Africa and the rest of the world.
Nomalanga Gule, Regional Trade Advisor for South and East Africa at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, says that implementing the rules of origin effectively will be key to boosting the success of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The AFCFTA is not only a trade agreement, but a blueprint for industrialization, market diversification, and sustainable development in the African continent. The AFCFTA aims to boost intra-Africa trade volumes and strengthen regional value chains that can transcend to the continental level. By establishing a single continental market and facilitating the movement of goods in the region and the continent, your role as competent authorities for managing customs procedures and for the issuance of the rules of origin certificate becomes even more pronounced.
The World Bank emphasizes that rules of origin are essential for the success of preferential trade agreements. They help prevent trade deflection and ensure that tariff preferences are granted only to goods originating from member countries. This is especially relevant in agreements such as the Southern African Customs Union SACU, the SADC EU EPA, and other economic partnership agreements with the regions like the EU and UK. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
All right, and that's all the business news I had for you this afternoon. For now, we'll catch a break. After that, we have a conversation with Enactus Director, Country Director. That's for our Enterprise Watch segment.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Welcome back. You are still watching the Monday edition of Market View. On to this now. Enactus Eswatini, a dynamic non-profit organization, is shaping the next generation of entrepreneurial leaders right here in the kingdom. Through experiential learning, Enactus equips students with business skills to build sustainable social and economic solutions, all while advancing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And now, 8 talented students from Leongo campus are set to represent Eswatini on the global stage at the upcoming Enactus World Cup in Bangkok, Thailand. So what is Enactus' role in tackling youth unemployment, and how is it cultivating a culture of entrepreneurship across the nation? To unpack the organization's impact, we are now joined via video link by the country director, Sabelo Dlamini. A very good afternoon to you, Nkosi, and thank you so much for affording us your time this afternoon. I'd like to, understand how Enactus Eswatini operates locally in terms of our educational and economic landscape. What are your focus areas when it comes to empowering young people through project-based learning?
Good afternoon, Stole and your viewers. Thank you for having us this afternoon. As Enactus, as we have rightly said, that we are a global non-profit making organization that works with students in universities, colleges, and vocational institutions, academia and business leaders to actually use entrepreneurial actions to create a better and more sustainable world for everyone. So we engage the students in practical projects to solve real-world socio-economic challenges, in the process empowering the people in our communities where we have identified those problems. We encourage our students, once they've identified the problem, to then use some entrepreneurial knowledge to solve that problem and work together with the community and empower the people. So our emphasis is more on the impact that the project is making on the people in those communities.
Right. Youth unemployment remains a pressing socio-economic challenge, with estimates at around a staggering 56% of unemployed youth population, you as an institution, as an organization, you are rising to that challenge. How are you building a culture of entrepreneurship that goes beyond theory, for the young people, that goes beyond the boardroom proposals into tangible impact?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stole. We have rightly said that's the mandate that we have been given by the board to ensure that all the projects that our students involved in the various institutions are not only just academic projects, but turned into real enterprises to create employment for themselves and also employment for the people, other young people in the kingdom of Eswatini. So there are a lot of programs that we do in trying to achieve that. One, of course, as you know, is we have to deal with the mindset change, because most young people, when they go to the university, they see themselves wearing neckties and in offices. So that's the starting point where we start our entrepreneurship program, where we train them on mindset change to help them now see things differently than they were seeing them before, so that when they start these projects, they start them with an intention of making jobs for themselves.
Now, I want to get a sense of Enactus Eswatini's footprint. What are some of these flagship projects that you speak on that you say you've had them being implemented by Enactus for the benefit of students?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stole. Just this year, Enactus is operating in 12 universities, colleges, and vocational institutions that are recognized by the Higher Education Council. We have just received 4 more institutions to make 16 now. But from the competition where we are coming from, we had about 8 teams with very promising products that we are working in assisting them to scale up those projects into real businesses. We have Eswatini College of Technology that has come up with my coffin project. So it is an antidote meant to alleviate some poisoning from cattle and fast track their growing, so they grow fast. So it's meant to assist farmers who are growing cattle in the kingdom, especially in the commercial sector, to make sure that within a very few space of time, you have your cattle ready for market. We have Limkokwini Creative University of Creativity and Technology with their retail project. So they are making pavers using recycled plastic. It's a business that has a huge potential. With this tile, they are actually replacing cement in the formation of pavers. So they're very strong ones with a durability of over 25 years. So we are assisting them to scale up that business as well. We have Ngwane Teacher Training College. They have Alo Forex project. This is an immune booster tablet that they have developed. They are using aloe and other natural products that are found within a Eswatini to improve the life of a Maswati. We have SANU Faculty of Education. They have recycled windscreens. Well, I hope we have seen during heavy rains that Many people have their cars damaged. Nobody bothers where those windscreens go. So these guys have come up with a solution. They collect them, and then they make very beautiful products like side lamps out of the broken windscreens. So they are in the market. They are selling those products. We have Sano Faculty of Health. They have Sano Faculty of Theology. And of course, UNESCO Mbabane, they have a digital mental health solution project that they've come up with. And lastly, the champions, UNESCO Luyengo.
With 12 active higher education institutions and 4 more awaiting, or rather looking to be part of this movement, to you as an institution, as the visionary leader for Enactus Eswatini, what does this signify in terms of growth, in terms of young people's interest, to find themselves in positions where they learn skills and are also able to implement? I want to believe that it then challenges yourselves as an institution, as an organization, to want to perhaps extend your reach.
Most definitely, Stole. It's quite very exciting. I think we are from a period where most of the institutions were opening. They were having those orientations, orienting the first students who are coming into the institutions. I took it upon myself to visit all the institutions, to talk about our programs, how the appetite was so awesome and amazing. Quite a number of our young people have now realized that the only solution to the unemployment problem in our kingdom is them coming up with solutions to create their own jobs, employ themselves and employ others. This has been shown even through those who registered in these various institutions to be part of the Enactus programs in the calendar year 2025-2026.
We do have the upcoming Enactus World Cup, and we have Luyengo campus that will be representing Eswatini. Bravo to our youngsters. How does the institution then support youth in terms of securing funding or grants to scale up their innovative projects into viable enterprises?
Thank you so much, Stole. That's what we are doing on a daily basis, and thank you also for having us here, so that partners can see what we are doing and come on board to partner with us in ensuring that we assist all our teams in terms of scaling their projects. So what we do as an office, over and above offering the comprehensive capacity building in terms of social entrepreneurship, we also do business mentorship and coaching. We also do market linkages, and we also do finance linkages where we link them with financiers. This team that we are taking to World Cup, for instance, they are now already a fully registered company legally. They have an operation space, a warehouse where they are doing their manufacturing, because they are manufacturers of this organic fertilizer. Through funding that was secured through our partners, Eswatini Environmental Authority, they are able to secure a machinery to the tune of 180,000 Emalangeni to automate their production process. Whilst they were doing this project, they were doing it using the school lab, the university lab. They could only produce small quantities because the facility was not enabling them to produce at that level. So now that they are having their machinery delivered, they will be producing 50 kgs, 20 kgs, and 10 kgs. And already they have a huge number of orders that they've received, in particular during the recent international trade fair that we have had here in the kingdom.
Fair enough, Sabelo. Thank you very much for your time. That was Enactus Eswatini Country Director, Sabelo Dlamini, sharing insights or filling us in on the programs that are being implemented actually by the organization to support youth entrepreneurship and project-based learning for especially university students. For now, we'll catch a break. After that, we are in conversation with our in-house economist, Zanele Sibia.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back now for our market analysis segment. In-house economist Zanele Sibia joins me in the studio. Very good afternoon to you, Sibia, and thank you so much. It's for coming, actually. It's the first trading day of the week. Reports have it that futures appear to be pulling back this morning after closing high on Friday. What is your observation of things this afternoon?
Thank you, Notile. So when you look at the futures market, more especially in the US, it does show some signs of just pulling back. One, because we're seeing a couple of moving elements in the international geopolitical landscape. Number one, we're seeing those moves by some countries in Europe to recognize, formally recognize the state of Palestine. Now that's going to put, if not managed, well, it might likely put the US and and its European counterparts at odds, because the US is likely to support whatever stance that Israel is going to take. So that's number one. And then number two, what we woke up to, which President Trump did on Friday, he signed another executive order. And that executive order basically states that if you want to go work in the US, now you need the company, or you need to pay $100,000 for that visa. So now that's just sending some shockwaves into the markets, really just to see how that is going to play off in terms of will companies actually afford that, and how what the impact will be mostly within that tech space, because you'd realize that people who tend to apply for the H-1B visa are those skills that are very rare within the US, and
Can I
that's
just
what's
chime
required.
in, reports have it that a lot of those applicants, actually the skilled workers, are coming in from India.
Yeah.
Just to get your insights on your thoughts on this one before we get into the numbers, I think you can give us the summary. With the current trade relationship between the US and India and this 100K tag on a visa, does the US really stand to lose more in this particular policy?
I think that's what markets are showing right now, Notsile, because it speaks to productivity, because these are skills that ideally you would not find in the US. They're in short supply, so you do need the skills. And around 72% of those H-1B visa holders are actually from India, of Indian descent. And now, that also speaks a bit to the geopolitical tensions between India and the US. But overall, that's why markets are a bit shaky, because that's what the tech sector relies on, that supply of the technical skill, which is not there in the US. So in the long term, if not managed well, the US might actually lose, because losses of those skills means productivity. Or if you then expect companies to pay this 100K per applicant, then that means now you're pushing up the cost of production. In as much as companies would still get those in, but in terms of competitiveness in the global landscape, they might lose that edge.
Right. Now let's get into the numbers. What are we looking at?
Thank you. So when you look in the numbers in the US, we're still seeing a bit of some positive there, you know, following that Friday meeting on interest rates, you know, being pulled back 25 basis points. And also there are some positives around the talks between China and the US in terms of over TikTok mostly. TikTok is one of those sticking points, and you know, the supply of chips and the sale of chips between NVIDIA and China. So markets are somehow seeing better signals coming out of that. And what we're looking forward to this week is, you know, the NPC data, which shows how inflation is actually going to play out. And that's what markets are looking forward to. If inflation shows signs of softening this week, then we would expect another rate cut next month in October. And then if you move into Europe, what we're seeing there is a bit of a contrast with only London just barely holding on to the green, but Germany and, you know, France seem to be, you know, lagging behind. Those are the impacts of that visa coming into play, and also the impacts of those tariffs that, you know, the automobile sector in the European Union across the board and in London is not doing very well, you know. We did expect to see a shift into some EVs, but there have been a pullback of those numbers by the major manufacturers within the European market. So now those things are working to pull markets back just a bit. And while also markets are waiting to see those fireworks that are coming out between, you know, Israel and the European Union and the UK, and we're waiting to see how the US is going to weigh in on this, and that might actually have profound effects on markets. And what we're seeing again there is gold is ticking up a bit, and on that background, we do know that part of that upward shift in gold prices is due to that those simmering geopolitical tensions between Europe and Israel, and also, you know, because there's an expectation of yet another rate cut in the US, so we're just holding fingers there. And then when you move into China, into Asia, we're seeing that, you know, both Asia, both Japan and mainland China are on the positive, largely driven by the fact that we're seeing those fundamentals, and more especially we've seen that last week the Bank of China announced that they're going to push in some stimulus into the markets. And when you look at what's happening in Japan, we're seeing the Bank of Japan stopping that buyback position that it was on. So we're seeing that happening. But when you go right into Hong Kong, the territory there, we know that the Hang Seng is largely led by those tech stocks, and that H-1B visa story seems to be visible right there in losing that 200 points, because, you know, companies are still waiting to see what's going to happen, who's going to lose, who's going to gain, and is this going to stay, or is this one of those things that are just transient, as you know Trump to do. And then when you move into South Africa, we're seeing that there is a positive momentum in South African markets, largely being driven by that glittering gold price, number one. Number two, we saw last week the Federal Reserve Bank of South Africa actually held interest rates steady. And that sends signals to the market that we are heading into a stronger position, with the South African Reserve Bank now, now positing that they're going to target the lower end, the 3% as an inflation target, instead of the 4.5%, which was the midpoint. So now that pivot in monetary policy within South Africa does show some signs of strength and some signs of ensuring that we keep inflation within that lower end of the spectrum, which should, in the long term, drive productivity and predictability within South African markets. We've not seen any movements in the domestic stock markets. And then when you move into commodities, gold has hit new records around $3,760 per ounce, largely being driven by those geopolitical uncertainties and also the expectation of yet another rate cut in the US. Brent crude oil, just losing a bit. They're staying at $66 per barrel. Now, that's largely due to the fact that in as much as there are those geopolitical tensions, we don't really expect much of retaliation from Israel, because if they do, they would then put themselves at odds with the entire Arab nations in that surrounding area of confluence. So Brent crude is staying relatively at ease, but we do know there are worries around, those the supply, the Russian supply into the overall oil markets, which we're still watching and continuing to monitor. And then when we move into the currencies, we're seeing a bit of some mixed signals within the currency space. We've gained a bit of strength against the dollar, losing relatively a bit against the euro and gaining against the Japanese yen, largely being propped up by the glittering gold markets and metals overall.
Thank you very much for your insights. That was economist Zanele Sibia helping us make sense of what's making the trade markets today. Otherwise, until the next edition of Market View, take care.